At the start of each year, there is a surge of motivation. People begin to list new habits to build, new goals to pursue, and routines to improve. There's value in that. But from the Stoic view, building something new should also mean letting go of what no longer serves you. The Stoics practiced a kind of annual cleansing, mental, physical, and spiritual. Not just a commitment to start doing more, but a sharp decision to stop doing what makes you weak, distracted, or dependent. Seneca plunged into the freezing Tiber River as a symbolic gesture to face discomfort. Marcus Aurelius asked himself if what he was doing each day was essential, because he knew that the inessential drains the essential. That's the Stoic mindset. Subtraction before addition. Eliminate what dulls the mind before you seek wisdom. Clear what blocks the soul before you seek peace. This video is that process. A methodical removal of 14 habits that do not deserve your time or energy in 2026. What follows are lessons and reminders from the Stoics, practical and firm. Each one is a mirror. They ask you to look closely and ask, am I holding on to this? And if I am, why? And for how much longer? Let us begin. Chapter 1. Quit seeking comfort first. Comfort is not the enemy. Dependency on comfort is. The Stoics trained themselves to move toward discomfort, not to suffer unnecessarily, but to build resistance and control. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that he was not made to lie under warm blankets, but to fulfill his role as a human being. He understood that the natural impulse to avoid discomfort leads to stagnation. Seneca took cold plunges as a training method. He exposed himself to discomfort regularly so he would not become dependent on comfort. This was not a pursuit of novelty. It was a system of preparation. By facing cold water, he prepared his body and mind to accept difficulty without panic. He built tolerance, sharpened discipline, and tested his will on purpose. He was choosing discomfort so that comfort would not choose him. Epictetus taught that growth demands friction. He explained that if a person wants to improve, they must let go of the desire to appear perfect. A beginner must be willing to look inexperienced. A student must be willing to be corrected. If a person avoids situations that challenge their ego, they remain stuck at their current level. Change does not happen inside comfort. It begins when you accept that awkwardness is part of learning and that discomfort is part of transformation. These practices were forms of discipline. They helped develop self-control. They removed the illusion that comfort is a reward. The Stoics understood that discomfort is part of life. By choosing to face it directly, they reduced their fear of it. This allowed them to act when others hesitated. It allowed them to carry out duties that others avoided. It gave them an advantage in both ordinary and extreme situations. The habit of seeking comfort first becomes dangerous when it shapes your priorities. When decisions are based on what feels better instead of what is required, you compromise your strength. If a difficult task is delayed because it feels unpleasant, your discipline begins to erode. Each small excuse lowers the standard. Each skipped challenge reinforces avoidance. The Stoic trains to reverse this pattern. They do the hard thing first. They enter discomfort with the mindset of a soldier reporting for duty. Quit ending your day early simply because your energy dips. Recognize that low energy is a signal to adjust, not to quit. Fatigue should prompt you to reset your pace, not abandon your responsibilities. Discipline means continuing until your task is done. The Stoics trained themselves to finish what they started, especially when it became difficult. They understood that consistency builds integrity. Allowing tiredness to dictate your day removes that structure. End your day only after your duties are completed. That is how you build reliability. Quit avoiding hard conversations. When something must be addressed, speak with clarity. Silence may feel easier in the moment, but it creates tension that builds and returns later with more weight. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to act according to what is right, not what is convenient. If something needs to be said, say it with respect and purpose. Avoidance weakens your internal voice. Each conversation you delay becomes a weight on your conscience. Speak directly when it matters. This creates trust, both in yourself and from others. Quit skipping your workout or meditation session just because it is raining, loud, or inconvenient. These external factors are part of life. Discipline is the ability to stay on track regardless of them. When you commit to a practice, show up for it. The practice is not about comfort, it is about stability. Each time you hold to your discipline despite discomfort, you send a message to your mind that your word can be trusted. That message matters more than the weather or your temporary mood. These small acts of resistance build the character needed for larger challenges. Each time you override comfort to follow through with effort, you confirm your reliability. These are not just tests of strength, but habits that reinforce stability. When you choose what is required rather than what is easy, you build an internal structure that does not collapse under pressure. You increase your capacity to make sound decisions when it matters most. The Stoic does not aim to avoid hardship. They aim to carry responsibility with strength, regardless of external comfort. These daily moments are not trivial. They are repeated trials where you prove that you can govern yourself. Saying no to distractions, holding yourself to a standard, honoring your routines. These are not symbolic gestures. They are decisions that train consistency. When effort becomes your default response, it becomes harder to drift into weakness. Choosing the harder path does not just build physical endurance, it sharpens your focus, strengthens your sense of order, and creates reliability that others can count on. Use discomfort as your training ground. Use every small inconvenience as a moment to hold your posture, to continue what you started, and to finish what you commit to. Keep a record of your choices each day. Track the moments where you upheld your structure and the moments you let it drop. Write them down. Study them weekly. Use them as your feedback system. This is how you refine your process. This is how you monitor your growth. Repetition in discipline is how capacity expands. When you respond well in unfavorable conditions, you stretch your limit. That stretch becomes your new baseline. As that baseline increases, so does your tolerance, so does your clarity. The Stoic is dependable not by nature but by training. That training is daily. That dependability is built in the smallest of decisions. You prove your strength one disciplined act at a time. Chapter 2. Quit speaking too much. The Stoics prized silence, not as avoidance but as mastery. Epictetus taught that we should speak only when necessary and only if our words provide clarity or value. Marcus Aurelius, in his private reflections, warned himself against gossip, idle talk, and exaggeration. They all weaken thought. Every time you talk unnecessarily, you risk misrepresenting yourself. When words are used without purpose, they dilute meaning. You stretch truth when you speak reactively or to fill silence. Each unnecessary comment is an opportunity for misunderstanding. You also give others more access to your thoughts than is required. This weakens your personal boundaries. Conversations that serve no function drain your time and energy. They move your focus away from what matters. The Stoics understood that speech is an instrument. It should be used with care. A sharp tool loses its edge when used without reason. The wise person speaks only when there is value to add. They listen more than they talk. They evaluate before they respond. Their discipline in speech is not for show, it is for accuracy. They protect their words so that when they do speak, it carries weight. The goal is not silence for its own sake. The goal is speech with structure and intent. Speaking too much often reveals internal disorder. It shows a lack of inner stability. When a person feels the need to constantly explain themselves, it suggests they have not fully committed to their choices. The need to justify every decision points to insecurity. Clear decisions do not need constant clarification. When you act with reason, you do not need to defend your behavior to everyone. The Stoics aimed to simplify their motives and actions. They trained to speak only when it added value or served a purpose. The more a person explains, the more they reveal their lack of clarity. When thoughts are scattered, speech becomes long-winded. When intentions are unclear, words become excessive. The Stoic builds clarity through silence. They reflect before they speak. If their position is sound, they do not feel pressure to argue or persuade. They know that long speeches often confuse instead of clarify. Simplicity in speech is a reflection of simplicity in mind. The Stoic trains to be comfortable in silence. Silence is not a burden. It is a space to observe and understand. It is where patience is tested and strengthened. It is where ego loses its hold. When you are silent, you can observe more. You can detect emotion in others. You can think before you speak. Most importantly, you can decide whether words are necessary at all. This is a form of discipline. The less you speak, the more your words begin to carry meaning. They are not anxious about being misunderstood by strangers. Misunderstanding is expected. Clarity is your task. Agreement is not. When you rely on being understood, you rely on external validation. When you can continue your work without explanation or approval, you demonstrate independence. The Stoic accepts that others may misinterpret them. They respond only when clarity is needed, not when pride is threatened. They are not driven by the need to appear intelligent. They are focused on understanding. To appear intelligent is to perform. To seek understanding is to improve. The Stoic does not perform for crowds. They direct their energy inward first, then outward with intent. They speak when necessary and remain quiet when silence is more productive. Each moment of speech is chosen. Each word is used with care. Quit explaining yourself when no explanation is needed. Let your decisions reflect your values. If someone questions you and a simple answer will suffice, give it. Do not extend the conversation to defend your image. Respect your own boundaries. Quit talking to be liked. Words used to gain approval are unstable. They shift with each audience. That weakens trust in your message. Let your behavior speak. Let your consistency build respect. Quit commenting on subjects you do not understand. Be honest about your limits. Speaking with confidence on unclear topics builds confusion. It damages your credibility. The wise person listens. They learn by watching, studying, and asking. They do not need to be the first to respond. They wait until they have enough understanding to speak with precision. Restraint is a sign of control. It protects your integrity. Listening allows you to learn. When you are silent, you gain access to more information. You allow space for others to reveal their thoughts clearly. You observe patterns in tone, word choice, and timing. You hear what others miss because your attention is directed outward, not scattered by your own thoughts. You begin to ask better questions because your understanding deepens. Insight comes from noticing what is beneath the surface. When you do not interrupt, you also learn patience, which sharpens your self-restraint. Listening is a skill that improves judgment. It trains the mind to slow down and examine instead of react. It improves relationships because people feel respected when they are heard. It reduces unnecessary conflict because many problems begin with poor communication. Choosing to stay silent until you have all the information helps you avoid careless mistakes. The Stoics did not rush to speak. They considered, then responded with purpose. Speak less and mean more. Limit your words to those that carry weight. Speak only when your words contribute to understanding. Speak when there is a need for structure, clarity, or direction. Choose words that reflect thought, not impulse. Speak with the same discipline you apply to your work. Treat each sentence as an action to be measured and reviewed. Develop the habit of measuring your speech the way you measure your actions. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Is this true? Is this helpful? Is this the right moment to say it? If the answer is unclear, delay your response until it becomes clear. A person who governs their words is more likely to govern their life. When your speech is measured, your thoughts become clearer. When your thoughts are clear, your actions become consistent. Clear speech prevents confusion. It reduces the energy wasted on miscommunication. It keeps your relationships honest. This is the foundation of credibility. People trust what you say because they see that your words are chosen with care. They know that when you speak, it is worth hearing. This is the standard of the Stoic: measured, consistent, intentional, and grounded in principle. Chapter 3. Quit needing praise. Praise is a powerful seduction. The Stoics warned against it constantly. Marcus Aurelius wrote that fame is meaningless if you consider who is giving it. He said the applause of the crowd means little if the crowd is driven by ignorance, bias, or trend. To need praise is to become dependent on forces you do not control. It is to outsource your worth to unstable and shifting opinions. The approval of others is not consistent. It changes with trends, preferences, and moods. Building your identity around external praise makes you vulnerable to their fluctuations. The Stoic understands that true confidence must be built from within. Praise may come and go, but principles can remain steady. The Stoics trained themselves to measure success by inner judgment. They did not ask whether others were impressed or satisfied. They asked whether they acted according to reason, whether they served the common good, and whether they honored their guiding values. If the answer was yes, then that alone was sufficient. This allowed them to stay on course when criticized and to remain grounded when admired. Outer approval became irrelevant to their sense of worth. Those who depend on praise also adjust their behavior to receive more of it. They exaggerate their achievements. They avoid hard truths. They compromise on values to maintain popularity. This weakens character. The person becomes reactive instead of steady. The Stoic avoids this path by training their attention on their own conduct. Praise may still come, but it is treated as a passing moment, not a measure of value. Quit looking at likes, shares, and compliments to decide how well you're doing. Metrics have their place, but they do not define you. Feedback should inform improvement, not shape identity. Quit modifying your actions to earn applause. Each time you adjust your course for recognition, you drift further from your standard. Stay focused on the work. Stay aligned with your principles. Learn to work in silence and let the results speak for themselves. Let your actions reveal your effort. Let your character reflect your consistency. Those who do meaningful work without the need for constant recognition are often the ones building something that lasts. Let your reward be your growth, your impact, and your peace of mind. Chapter 4. Quit being busy without direction. Activity does not equal progress. Seneca warned that being busy is often just another form of laziness of reflection. People stay busy so they don't have to think deeply. They stay in motion so they don't have to sit in stillness. The Stoics valued directed effort. Marcus Aurelius would begin each morning by asking himself with precision, "What is my task today?" This question cut through distraction. It eliminated what was irrelevant and unnecessary. He was not concerned with what was fashionable, what other people were doing, or what would earn immediate reward. He sought what was essential, what aligned with duty, what served his role as a human being, and what moved him closer to virtue. When you start your day with this clarity, your actions carry weight. You know what deserves attention and what can be ignored. Without this structure, the mind becomes reactive. Urgency replaces purpose. You chase after noise instead of substance. Seneca described busyness as a false shield. People often use activity to avoid honest reflection. They mistake constant motion for progress, yet they never pause to ask whether the motion has direction. The Stoics believed that thought must guide action. Action without review is wasted energy. Reflection creates order. Order makes effort effective. When you dedicate time to plan what is necessary, you preserve energy for the work that matters most. Practical application of this teaching requires deliberate structure. Begin each morning by setting priorities before exposing yourself to demands. If the first thing you check is your inbox or notifications, your agenda becomes dictated by others. You are no longer acting, you are reacting. By contrast, when you outline your priorities first, you create a filter for the day. Each incoming request can be weighed against what you already determined to be essential. This protects your focus and prevents dilution of effort. Quit checking your inbox before you plan your day. Begin with a clear review of your tasks, responsibilities, and goals. Decide in advance what is most important. Quit reacting before reviewing. Create pauses in your day to reflect on whether what you are doing aligns with what you set out to achieve. Quit saying yes to every invitation, every meeting, and every request for your time. Each yes without review pulls you away from your path. Decline what does not serve your duty. Protect your schedule as you would protect your health. Structure your time like your life depends on it, because it does. Every day spent without direction is a day lost to chaos. Every hour given to distraction is an hour removed from growth. Build your day on essentials. Guard it with discipline. Act with clarity. This is how effort becomes meaningful, and this is how the Stoic ensures that busyness never replaces true progress. Chapter 5. Quit waiting to feel ready. The Stoics saw hesitation as a form of fear. Seneca said that most people delay because they hope for better conditions, better timing, or better feelings. But life offers no such guarantees. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that life is short, and hesitation steals more than failure. To act only when you feel ready is to become a slave to emotion. The Stoics warned that those who delay until the perfect moment lose valuable time. Readiness is often an illusion created by hesitation. Waiting for ideal conditions means you may never begin. The Stoics trained for the present moment because they understood that life rarely gives perfect circumstances. They acted while afraid, while uncertain, and while uncomfortable. They treated fear as a signal that action was required, not as a reason to hold back. They knew that progress happens once motion begins, not before. Hesitation is costly. Each delay allows doubt to build. Each moment of waiting adds weight to the decision. The longer you delay, the harder it becomes to start. Seneca reminded his readers that life is slipping away while we postpone. He urged them to live immediately, to treat each day as a complete unit. A person who begins their work at once is already gaining ground. A person who waits for readiness risks losing their chance entirely. The Stoic discipline is to engage directly with what stands before them. By doing so, they remove hesitation's power. To apply this lesson, stop tying your actions to your mood. Quit waiting for motivation before you begin. Discipline is more reliable than inspiration. Begin the work whether you feel energized or not. Quit holding back questions out of fear of appearing ignorant. Ignorance only remains when curiosity is silenced. By asking, you demonstrate a willingness to learn. Quit postponing difficult tasks until you feel strong. Often, strength arrives once you are already engaged in the effort. Action builds momentum, and momentum strengthens resolve. The Stoics would advise practicing the habit of immediate action. If something requires your attention, address it now. If a duty presents itself, fulfill it without delay. The present moment is the only place where control exists. By acting in the present, you separate yourself from the anxiety of what might come. You also train your mind to move through fear instead of being halted by it. Beginning now is not only a strategy, it is a discipline. It conditions you to be reliable in both small and great matters. Each act of starting despite discomfort becomes another step in building strength. This is how the Stoic advances each day. Chapter 6. Quit expecting others to understand you. The Stoics trained themselves to expect misunderstanding. They knew that most people do not live by the same principles. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to be tolerant of ignorance, patient with resistance, and unmoved by judgment. If you build your identity on being understood, you become fragile. When your peace depends on the opinions of others, one misinterpretation is enough to unsettle you. Relying on others to confirm who you are makes you vulnerable to their moods, their judgments, and their biases. The Stoics emphasized the importance of internal clarity. They held to their principles regardless of whether others agreed. They knew that stability must come from within because external agreement is uncertain and inconsistent. The Stoic maintains internal clarity regardless of external confusion. They train their judgment so that it does not bend under pressure. They know their values and they act according to them. They do not waste energy trying to convince everyone. They do not explain themselves unless clarity is required for duty or justice. They accept that many will misunderstand, criticize, or dismiss their choices. Their stability is grounded in living in alignment with principle, not in persuading others to share their view. When you strengthen yourself in this way, you free your life from constant correction and justification. A person who is always explaining themselves slowly gives away authority over their own decisions. They begin to shape their actions around avoiding criticism rather than pursuing virtue. This weakens independence. The Stoic breaks this habit by standing firm in conduct. They understand that consistent behavior communicates more than repeated explanations. Living clearly and with integrity is its own form of proof. Quit repeating yourself hoping that others will eventually agree. The more you try to force understanding, the more energy you waste, and the less conviction your words carry. Quit bending your values to avoid criticism. Each time you lower your standard to please someone else, you weaken your foundation and invite further compromise. Quit hoping for complete alignment with others. Opinions will always differ, and diversity of perspective is part of human life. Instead, focus on clarity in your own actions. Do your work thoroughly. Fulfill your duties with consistency. Stay grounded in what is essential and refuse to drift with every external expectation. Let others think what they want while you remain steady in principle and direction. Strength is revealed when you remain composed under misinterpretation. Discipline is revealed when you keep your path, even when others do not approve or understand. Courage is revealed when you choose integrity, even at the cost of popularity. Patience is revealed when you wait calmly as others form their judgments without rushing to intervene. This is the independence the Stoics aimed for, the ability to remain at peace without universal agreement. It is freedom from the need to be validated by every voice around you, and the strength to continue your work unshaken. It is the quiet power of being self-led, a state where your character stands as your proof, and where stability comes from your adherence to principle rather than from external acceptance. Chapter 7. Quit talking about what you will do. Epictetus warned that declaring your intentions too often can be a substitute for actual effort. Talking about your plans gives a temporary sense of accomplishment, but no progress is actually made. Each time you speak of what you will do, you release some of the energy that should be used to begin the task itself. This creates the illusion of progress without substance. The Stoics recognized this risk. They advised restraint in declaring intentions and discipline in action. Words should follow deeds, not replace them. The Stoics were doers. They placed emphasis on action that could be seen and measured, not on talk that faded once spoken. They valued private preparation and public execution. They saw little value in broadcasting promises. Instead, they trained to live their decisions and embody their values without excessive commentary. Marcus Aurelius compared this to the vine, which produces grapes quietly, without explanation or announcement. The vine fulfills its nature by simply doing its work. The Stoic strives for the same, quiet fulfillment of duty and clear results that speak without advertisement. Speaking about intentions as a way to impress others weakens discipline. Each promise made and left unfulfilled reduces credibility. Each declaration without action conditions the mind to believe that words are sufficient. This cycle breeds self-deception. When the habit becomes entrenched, a person may mistake talking about growth for actual growth. The Stoics guarded against this by keeping their commitments silent until results could be shown. In this way, their lives became demonstrations of character rather than presentations of intention. Quit posting about your goals before you begin. Announcing them does not advance you toward them. Quit announcing your next move. Each declaration disperses energy that should be directed toward execution. Quit using promises as a way to gain admiration. Approval earned by words without action is hollow and fleeting. Focus on the action itself. Begin the work. Complete the duty. Fulfill what you have set out to do. Let the result be your statement. Let the visible progress be your proof. A life of consistent action builds credibility without the need for constant explanation. Reliability is strengthened each time you complete what you begin without drawing attention to it. Others learn to trust you because they see outcomes, not announcements. Consistency in execution creates a reputation that words alone cannot secure. The Stoic standard is to let deeds outweigh speech, and to let discipline be visible in results that stand as proof of character rather than in empty promises. Each fulfilled duty becomes a form of communication, each completed task a statement of principle. By living this way, you show that discipline is more than an idea. It is a practice confirmed daily through visible effort and steady results. Chapter 8. Quit craving control over what is not yours. Epictetus divided life into two domains: what is within your control and what is not. Your choices, judgments, and actions belong to you. Everything else, reputation, outcomes, the behavior of others, fortune, is outside your command. To crave control over the external is to waste your strength and scatter your attention. The Stoic teaches discipline by returning attention to the inner domain, because that is where authority resides. Peace is found in governing yourself, not the world. And true composure begins when you learn to separate what belongs to you from what does not. Quit resenting events you cannot alter. Resentment keeps you tied to what is already beyond your influence and drains energy that could be spent on growth. Quit expecting people to always behave as you wish, because their choices belong to them, not to you, and they act according to their own understanding. Quit attaching your happiness to outcomes that depend on chance or circumstance, since these will rise and fall without your command and can never be fully predicted. Direct your energy where it counts, on your effort, your conduct, and your reasoning. That is where your strength is tested and trained. Practice patience when outcomes disappoint you. Practice composure when others resist your expectations. Practice acceptance when fortune does not favor you. Practice courage by continuing even when the situation feels unfair. Practice humility by recognizing the limits of your control and accepting them without bitterness. By doing this, you build an inner shield that remains intact regardless of what surrounds you, a defense that cannot be broken by rumor, criticism, or fate. This is the training ground of freedom, the place where true control exists and where independence of mind is forged and strengthened with every decision. Chapter 9. Quit holding on to resentment. The Stoics taught that clinging to anger is self-inflicted harm. Anger might feel justified in the moment, but holding on to it keeps the wound open. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is to be unlike the one who injured you. This means maintaining character and dignity regardless of how others behave. Seneca called anger a temporary madness. It distorts thinking and leads to rash choices. When anger lingers, it turns into resentment. Resentment becomes a recurring weight on the mind. Carrying grudges extends that madness. It traps you in cycles of bitterness. It binds you to the past and steals the present. Resentment turns attention away from what can be improved and locks it onto what cannot be changed. It keeps your thoughts focused on others' faults rather than your own progress. It creates imagined conversations, replays old offenses, and distorts your ability to judge clearly. Anger delays healing. It gives continued control to the person who wronged you. The Stoics believed that peace cannot begin until anger ends. To release resentment is to reclaim clarity. It is a shift from reaction to reflection. Forgiveness is not agreement with injustice. It is the deliberate choice to end the chain of reactivity. It is a way of removing the emotional weight of another person's error from your mind. The Stoics chose calm over chaos. They knew that energy should be directed toward what builds strength and order, not what sustains harm. Quit replaying insults. Each repetition keeps the pain active and reinforces a cycle of emotional reaction. When you replay a past offense, you give it new life. Your attention fuels it. This keeps your mind locked on the moment of injury instead of the actions you can take now. Holding on to these moments prevents recovery. Even small slights, if rehearsed repeatedly, begin to control your mood and influence your decisions. The Stoic recognizes this and lets the insult pass through without anchoring it to memory. Quit dwelling on unfairness. Life does not conform to our sense of what is deserved. People act in ways that are unjust, and events often unfold without explanation. Focusing on what is unfair redirects your attention toward complaint and helplessness. It shifts your judgment from principle to grievance. The Stoic accepts reality as it is and responds with reason. Instead of wishing the world were different, they prepare to meet it as it is. This mindset protects emotional stability and restores attention to what can be done. Quit keeping lists of who wronged you. Each name, each incident becomes a mental burden. It keeps emotional debt alive and encourages you to carry it forward. The mind begins to operate through resentment. Small irritations trigger larger reactions because the memory of previous offenses remains unprocessed. When you stop tracking these offenses, you free your judgment to act in the present. The weight of the past no longer defines your mood, and your energy can return to useful effort. Each memory of bitterness occupies space that could be used for growth. That space could hold reflection, discipline, or learning. When it is filled with grievance, those possibilities are reduced. Forgiveness clears that space. It does not excuse harm, but it releases the hold that harm has on your direction. It creates distance between your identity and your pain. Forgiveness restores focus. It brings the mind back to reason. It makes room for you to think clearly, decide responsibly, and act effectively. The Stoic understands that life includes mistakes. Others will disappoint you. You will fall short of your own standards. These events are expected parts of human interaction and development. To carry each one endlessly places you in permanent conflict with reality. It creates tension between what happened and what you believe should have happened. This constant resistance exhausts your attention and pulls focus away from current responsibility. Letting go is an act of judgment. It is a deliberate refusal to let memory control action. The Stoic does not view this process as passive withdrawal. It is an active choice to return control to reason. When the mind replays errors, both your own and those of others, it remains tied to what cannot be changed. That energy is better used to support clarity, reflection, and deliberate movement forward. Each moment carried from the past prevents full attention to the present. The Stoic develops awareness through repetition. Each offense becomes another opportunity to exercise restraint. Each disappointment becomes a trial for patience. This process creates habits. Those habits build structure. Through this training, the mind learns to drop unnecessary weight. It does not seek justice through internal suffering. It seeks improvement through deliberate control. Letting go is the control to refuse further harm through memory. When emotional reactions become automatic, they continue to shape perception long after the event is gone. The Stoic studies those reactions and separates what can be used from what should be dismissed. They train to remove unnecessary attachments and maintain a clear position. They assess whether a feeling contributes to good action. If it does not, they let it expire. The Stoic does not rely on temporary feelings to determine long-term behavior. They make adjustments based on principle. To carry peace in the presence of injustice is a mark of disciplined judgment. It shows that action can be guided by values rather than emotion. The Stoic chooses calm instead of poison. That choice is practiced in small situations, in everyday interactions, in the quiet thoughts between conversations. It becomes a mental reflex. With enough repetition, that reflex becomes character. This habit leads to resilience, clarity, and self-command. It turns judgment into strength and discipline into direction. Chapter 10. Quit comparing yourself to others. Comparison traps you in someone else's race. It shifts your focus from development to image. When attention is fixed on others, you begin to forget what progress means for you. The Stoics warned against this trap. They measured progress against internal consistency, not external recognition. They judged success by alignment with principle, not by position in a social hierarchy. The Stoics valued progress against one's own measure. They did not view another person's success as a personal loss. Envy is the discomfort that arises from seeing someone else win while believing that you should have what they have. Pride is the mistaken belief that status above others defines worth. Both distort your thinking. Both lead to wasteful behavior. They distract from the work that actually builds strength. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that another's path does not diminish his own. The direction of another person's life has no bearing on your purpose. Each life has its work. Each person has their portion of fate. You are not here to imitate. You are here to fulfill your own role with discipline and clarity. When you compare yourself constantly, your standards begin to shift. You stop aiming for excellence in conduct and start chasing recognition. You abandon your structure and adopt another's pattern. This leads to confusion. It weakens your ability to act with focus. The mind becomes scattered between admiration, insecurity, and imitation. The Stoic trains to return inward. They use self-reflection to track real progress. They observe whether their actions match their values. They examine their own consistency rather than another's status. Quit scrolling through achievements of others and questioning your worth. What others accomplish is separate from your responsibility. Quit measuring progress by another's recognition. Praise can be based on things that do not reflect strength or principle. Quit trying to copy their journey. Their path has different circumstances, different duties, and different consequences. Instead, measure yourself by consistency in principle, effort, and discipline. Track how often your actions match your commitments. This gives you a clear record of how seriously you treat your own word. Every broken promise to yourself weakens self-trust. Every fulfilled one strengthens it. Evaluate your conduct in both public and private. Character is shown most clearly when there is no audience. Pay attention to your behavior when no one is watching. This is where habits are reinforced, where your default response is shaped, and where your true values are visible. Examine whether your thoughts are clear and your decisions are guided by reason. Look closely at your motives. Are your actions rooted in stability or in reaction? Are you following a structure or drifting toward convenience? Reason provides a framework for action that does not depend on mood or public response. The Stoic keeps that framework intact by checking in daily with their own thinking. They do not measure themselves by how they feel, but by how they act. A person who competes with their past self builds momentum. Progress becomes measurable. The distractions of social comparison fade because the focus is on personal alignment. When you look at yesterday's conduct, you create a baseline for today. You ask whether your thinking was sound, your effort was steady, and your values were reflected in your actions. Improvement becomes intentional. This is how the Stoic keeps balance, by competing only with the self of yesterday. They do not expect perfection. They expect honesty in evaluation and steadiness in pursuit. That comparison gives direction without confusion. It makes room for progress without envy. It removes the noise of public attention and replaces it with private accountability. That is the kind of progress that sustains itself. That is the kind of clarity that leads to real growth. Chapter 11. Quit indulging in excess. Seneca warned that luxury creates dependency. Pleasure in moderation is natural. Indulgence without limit enslaves. The Stoics practiced restraint in food, drink, possessions, and entertainment. They did not reject enjoyment. They rejected becoming ruled by it. Self-command was more valuable than luxury. Excess dulls reason, weakens body, and clouds judgment. Quit chasing every indulgence. Each indulgence may offer brief pleasure, but repetition without limits turns it into dependency. When you chase every desire, your mind becomes accustomed to needing stimulation to feel stable. This makes discomfort harder to face. It lowers your threshold for challenge. When pleasure becomes the default reward for stress, discipline fades. Self-control is slowly replaced by habit loops driven by impulse. Quit spending as if it secures identity. Purchases may reflect taste or preference, but they cannot replace structure, character, or self-respect. When spending becomes emotional or compulsive, it no longer serves a function. It becomes a coping mechanism. The Stoics reminded themselves that external things do not define the self. The self is formed by conduct and thought. Buying something to feel confident or admired only deepens attachment to things that can be lost. Quit eating or drinking to escape discomfort. Appetite becomes misaligned when it is used to solve emotional unease. Food is for nourishment. Drink is for moderation and clarity. When either is used to suppress frustration, boredom, or anxiety, the root problems are ignored. The Stoic seeks to face discomfort directly, not cover it with indulgence. Comfort that is earned through effort strengthens the body. Comfort that is used to delay effort weakens it. Discipline in appetite builds strength in character. When you say no to what is easy, you sharpen the will. Each refusal to indulge becomes a training repetition. It proves that your decisions are based on control, not on craving. You do not need to avoid all pleasure. You need to know its place and function. That knowledge becomes habit. That habit becomes stability. The Stoic enjoys what is available without becoming owned by it. They make use of what is present without demanding more. They appreciate without clinging. This allows them to be satisfied with less. They are prepared for scarcity because their peace does not rely on abundance. Freedom is found in sufficiency, not in excess. Sufficiency means having enough to fulfill your role with stability, attention, and health. It is the point where needs are met and distractions are reduced. When you orient your life towards sufficiency, you begin to direct your effort toward function rather than appetite. You do not seek constant stimulation. You seek conditions that allow for action, reason, and clarity. Sufficiency is measured by usefulness. If something helps you act well, think clearly, and stay steady, it belongs in your life. If it invites distraction, instability, or dependency, it must be examined. The Stoic defines their threshold deliberately. They are cautious about adding more than they can manage with integrity. Simplicity strengthens attention. It makes it easier to remain anchored to principle rather than pleasure. When a person builds their life around what is sufficient, they reduce confusion. They remove many of the decisions that lead to scattered thought and wasted time. Their priorities become clearer. Their boundaries become stronger. They are no longer caught in the chase for what is newer, bigger, or more appealing. They protect their mental space from clutter. They know what matters, and they focus on maintaining it. This mindset creates steadiness. The Stoic is steady in hardship because they have trained to go without excess. They are steady in comfort because they do not attach their identity to luxury. They use what is available and are prepared when it is removed. Their peace is not tied to abundance. It is built on reasoned use of what is present. This makes them reliable in both lean seasons and plentiful ones. That steadiness is the mark of a person in command of themselves. It shows that their habits are structured, their thoughts are disciplined, and their conduct is not reactive. That is the result of temperance. It is not just about avoiding excess. It is about maintaining internal structure regardless of external conditions. Temperance is a quiet strength. It holds the line when pressure rises. It chooses what is necessary and discards what is wasteful. It protects the mind and sharpens the will. Through this, the Stoic remains capable, centered, and free. Chapter 12. Quit wasting your mind on what you cannot change. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that anxiety is often born from things outside his influence. He wrote that if you are distressed by external events, it is not the events that trouble you, but your judgment about them. Energy spent on what cannot be altered is energy removed from what can. The Stoic trains to withdraw thought from the unchangeable and invest it in action. Quit obsessing over the news that you cannot affect. Tracking constant updates about events beyond your control fills the mind with agitation. It pulls attention outward and scatters your judgment. Most of what is reported is outside your influence. When you feed your mind with a steady stream of external chaos, you reduce the energy available for internal order. The Stoic filters input deliberately. They do not ignore the world, but they do not hand their peace to it. Quit worrying about the opinions of crowds. Public approval changes quickly. It follows trends, emotions, and appearances. If your peace is based on collective opinion, it will rise and fall with public attention. The Stoic avoids becoming reactive to praise or criticism. They focus on alignment with reason. They ask whether their action is just, not whether it is admired. This standard creates consistency. It protects against the instability of external approval. Quit imagining scenarios that will never occur. Anticipating difficulty has value when it prepares you. But dwelling on endless what-ifs trains the mind to fear shadows. It becomes a cycle of hesitation. Imagination creates pressure that does not exist in reality. The Stoic practices premeditatio malorum, preparing for difficulty with clarity, not panic. They imagine realistically, plan practically, and return to the present. That return is essential for calm action. Direct your mind toward duty, improvement, and principle. Your time is best used where your influence matters. Your thoughts should support action, not distract from it. Every moment of attention placed on what you cannot change is a moment lost from what you can build. The Stoic understands that mental energy is a resource. They do not waste it on speculation or complaint. They conserve it for judgment, effort, and correction. By disciplining attention, the Stoic builds clarity. Focus becomes a habit. Reaction is replaced with structure. Distraction fades because priorities are known. Preserving strength begins with preserving attention. The mind that is not pulled in every direction is the mind that becomes sharp. That sharpness is the foundation of a disciplined life. It is how the Stoic remains steady within and effective in action. Chapter 13. Quit delaying your duty. Seneca wrote that all fools have this in common. They are always preparing to live, never living. To delay what is essential is to gamble with time. The future is uncertain. The present is yours. The Stoics urged immediate fulfillment of duty. To wait is to lose what cannot be recovered. Quit saying you will begin tomorrow. Each delay reinforces hesitation. Each promise to start later trains your mind to avoid responsibility. Time continues whether you act or not, but your opportunity narrows with each postponement. The idea of later becomes a habit that blocks momentum. Waiting for the right time is often a mask for avoidance. The Stoic does not rely on the perfect mood or the ideal setup. They begin while conditions are still imperfect, because the moment at hand is always sufficient for action. Quit preparing endlessly without action. Planning has value, but its purpose is to support execution. When preparation replaces doing, it becomes avoidance in disguise. Endless refinement without delivery trains the mind to seek control over outcomes instead of making progress through effort. The Stoic begins before everything is certain. They know that clarity grows through movement. Improvement requires risk, adjustment, and repetition. The only way to improve a skill is to use it. Quit telling yourself that conditions will be perfect later. Perfect conditions rarely arrive. Even when they do, they pass quickly. Those who wait for everything to align often miss the window. Life does not pause for your convenience. The Stoic accepts the unpredictability of the world and takes action within it. They learn to move with uncertainty instead of being stopped by it. They train themselves to treat each day as the only one available, and that urgency gives structure to their effort. Begin the work now. Focus on what must be done rather than what you wish the conditions were. Take the first step. Deliver one clear action. Fulfill what is required while you have the chance. The moment you are in is the only one guaranteed. The future may change, delay, or disappear. Work today. Correct as you go. That rhythm builds momentum. It gives shape to your duty and confirms your principles through behavior. Each day is a complete unit. It contains your available energy, your best judgment, and your responsibility. Use it without waste. Do not wait for ideal timing to give your best. Live it fully. That means committing attention to your work, removing what distracts, and engaging each hour as an opportunity for discipline. The Stoic build structure day by day. They finish what they begin. They show up with effort, not excuses. In doing so, they turn daily life into daily training. Chapter 14. Quit seeking recognition for virtue. Marcus Aurelius cautioned himself against seeking the third thing. After doing good and benefiting another, he reminded himself not to crave recognition. He viewed service as complete when the action itself was complete. Seeking credit distorts the motive. It shifts attention from principle to reward. The more you crave praise, the less control you have over your direction. It becomes tied to how others respond. The Stoic serves because the act is just. They fulfill their role because it aligns with their nature and duty. Recognition adds nothing to the value of the action. Virtue is its own reward. It strengthens character and clarifies purpose. When an act is shaped by integrity, it does not require public confirmation. Its worth stands alone. Stoics viewed this as a test of independence. If you can act rightly without needing to be seen, you prove that your motivation is rooted in reason. This strengthens identity and removes the distraction of reputation. Quit looking for thanks after every deed. Do not let appreciation become a requirement for continued effort. When you expect gratitude, you make your virtue dependent on another's awareness. Quit expecting applause for discipline. The value of restraint is not in how it is perceived, but in how it anchors your mind. Quit needing credit for contribution. The measure of your effort is in the work itself, not in the recognition it collects. Let the act be its own completion. That is the standard. Ask yourself, was it done well? Was it aligned with your principles? Did it contribute to order, justice, or courage? If so, it is complete. Let it go. The Stoic does not carry their good deeds as leverage. They release them as duty fulfilled. They do not announce every sacrifice. They do not recount their discipline to gain admiration. They embody what they believe and move forward. This is how the Stoic remains free of vanity. They are not led by reputation. They are not driven by reward. They stay anchored in principle. They do not wait to be praised before acting again. They act from conviction. This frees their mind from dependence on others and returns attention to judgment. That is the mark of strength, quiet, steady, and internally guided. These 14 habits are weights. They slow your growth, scatter your focus, and weaken your will. The Stoics show another way. Remove what is unnecessary, and strength emerges. Eliminate what is harmful, and peace returns. Discipline is not only in adding routines, but in removing what corrupts them. The new year invites renewal. The Stoic uses it to sharpen the blade of character. Ask yourself, which of these habits still hold me? Which will I release? In quitting them, you are not losing. You are gaining space for discipline, freedom, and clarity. That is the path the Stoics walked. That is the path open to you now.